Ah yes, TNA, the Hawk's favourite show. I've got great memories watching them from the good times and the bad. Well, actually it was mostly bad, but it was never boring. The TNA World title is now held by a WWE NXT wrestler. Not actually the biggest problem here, believe it or not. A couple of months back, I warned you all about the NXT-TNA relationship. I tried to show you how bad it was, but instead, I was met with a backlash of hatred. Blind fans telling me I was wrong on all accounts and this relationship was actually awesome, the greatest thing since sliced bread. Well, it's not so awesome now, is it? It's essentially a loaf of mouldy Hovis.
In case you haven't caught on, I just slid my dick down your throat and you thanked me for it.
The fact that Trick Williams took the TNA gold from Joe Hendry's chiseled waist is not the reason for this rant. I actually completely expected it to happen at some point. I was mentally prepared to say that the WWE now hold the TNA gold. We can't forget that this has already happened with AEW taking the TNA gold through Omega and Christian. This is not actually such a big deal. Apart from, making TNA look small time, I could deal with a show looking small time. Hell, TNA has for more than half of its existence. But, are any of you actually watching the show, or are you just watching clips of TNA on YouTube? Because the viewing figures aren't any higher, TNA Plus subscriptions aren't any higher. Actually, they're lower now, because I just cancelled mine. And I'm not alone. Everywhere I'm seeing comments from frustrated TNA fans saying they can no longer support this deal and they are done with watching the show. Personally, I completely wiped my ass with TNA and I won't be giving it any attention going forward except for the NWA TNA reviews, which I bumped to Patreon. There's 2 episodes on there right now. Because if TNA wants to act like a third-rate developmental show, that's how I'm going to treat it, and I'll put it in a place where nobody will watch it. Just my luck too, they were actually 2 pretty good episodes. But I've made the decision, I won't be watching this TNA show again. No more weekly reviews, no more mentions of TNA in my bio or on social media. I've completely unfollowed them. I no longer support any aspect of the show and I don't want to be associated with them. Which is actually kind of difficult for me because I know I've always been linked to them, but they are a dead brand and I need to distance myself. This isn't some sort of comedic joke or myself being dramatic to try and get views. I suggest you all do the same as me. It won't really matter anyway. Yeah, TNA is technically a separate company from the WWE, but given what's happened, are they the slaves or the masters is clear to see. To get back on the subject, it was not the WWE taking the TNA belt that upset me. It was actually some other news that came out this month. TNA to ban blading during matches. Oh sure, that's a good thing, it protects the wrestlers. It sure does, and it also makes for boring ass matches that nobody cares about. Blood has always been an important part of this sport. Executives were apparently unhappy about the recent barbed wire massacre match and the dog collar match where the blood loss got a bit heavier than they planned. If you're in a real fight, people bleed. If you really hate somebody's guts, you're going to make them bleed. It sells fans on the aggression and the importance of the match. Now, have a think. Where else has banned blading, except under certain circumstances? Oh yeah, the TNA Rulers and Masters, WWE. They're saying this wasn't due to the WWE ordering TNA to do it. I don't believe them, I think they're just trying to save face. They're saying it because TNA are worried about advertisers. TNA hasn't bothered to care about advertisers throughout their entire existence. They probably should have, but the fact is they didn't. But now, as if by magic, they suddenly care. Completely out of the blue, what a coincidence! Even Dave Meltzer has reported that TNA have made this change to bring themselves more in line with the WWE rules, as they plan to work with them for years to come. Cool, so I plan not to watch for years to come. That wasn't the only ban either. Apparently, slaps are now banned? Slaps? Slap my nuts. Slap nuts. A wild slap. They have to be approved ahead of time. And the throat slashing gesture taunt. You know, a taunt which has been part of wrestling since I can remember. Oh yeah, didn't that one guy in WWE used to do it and then he killed his whole family? So is the throat slashing taunt a TNA issue or is it a WWE issue? You tell me. TNA wrestlers will now be fined $100 if they do the taunt. Well, better hope none of those TNA knockouts do it, otherwise they'll end up owing TNA money. TNA have played this off as the blood loss was becoming too frequent, even though they've always had one match per pay-per-view which someone is busted open in. It was just that they happened to run 2 pay-per-views a week apart and have a dog collar match on Impact. That's why it suddenly felt more hardcore than usual. I would hardly call it a staple of the company though. It's always been saved for their most important matches. The way they were talking, it's as if Ace Austin is out there every week bleeding like a stuffed pig. So you have to question, why is this happening? And I'm sorry, but this company have never cared about advertisers, never cared about slaps or taunts or blood or any of that. This is a WWE order. They want this product to be little kid friendly, just like their show is. What the hell has happened to the TNA X division? This is supposed to be the cornerstone of TNA. Nobody has any idea why Moose is the champion. It's rarely ever defended, and when it is on a show, it's just an excuse to get older wrestlers to have a match. Why would Eric Young v Moose be an X division title match in 2025? The division is dead, but TNA can't seem to be bothered to care about it. I have never seen it this crushed before. What young and exciting up-and-coming X Division talents are on the TNA show? There's literally only one guy I can think of. The Knockouts division has really suffered since Jordan Grace went to the WWE. Masha Slamovich just has not been able to fill that hole, although they have recently added some new knockouts to the show. None of them really scream main event level though. Tessa Blanchard hasn't really worked out as well as they would have expected her to either. Just look at the last pay-per-view, the two Knockouts matches were both given terrible ratings, which is the opposite of how it usually went down on a TNA show. I warned you about all of this. I said, why are we pushing Alicia Fox in 2025? And whilst we're on that subject to that, let's talk about the pay-per-views. They suck. Almost every recent pay-per-view has been bogged down with TNA vs NXT matches, except there's actually no storylines or rivalries. If there was an actual storyline, that would make it a lot better. But no, instead it's just two guys from two different companies having random matches that nobody cares about. This doesn't work when it's essentially the WWE developmental wrestlers fighting TNA. These aren't some dream cross-promotional matches. Why is it so difficult for them to create some sort of major heat and friction to get people excited? All it's done is diluted the TNA show into nothing matches with nothing riding on them. This relationship has been in place for about 6 months now. Tell me, what excellent storylines have there been in that time? What compelling standout feuds have there been? The answer is, there's been one in 6 months. There's only been one thing worth watching on TNA in 6 months. Because TNA is too busy wasting time focusing on this partnership, it's damaging their own show. The boneheads in charge, Dreamer and Delirious, need to go. Since they've taken over, it's been the drizzling shits. They have no idea what they're doing. Scott D'Amore leaving was a horrible thing. Whenever I watch TNA now, it almost looks like a wrestling parody show. I mentioned earlier on about TNA previously having a relationship with AEW. It's almost become a tribal battle between the two companies, with both trying to justify the TNA relationships as validation for how great their own shows are. At least TNA got Christian, who was a legend in their own company. Who have the WWE let them use? Ethan Page would be the man with the biggest affinity for the company, but he wrestled for them at a time when nobody cared about TNA. Actually, I'm wrong, because JBL was in TNA. He was randomly clotheslining people in the ass in main events, then he just disappeared and the storyline was never explained. I guess TNA should be really grateful for that one. There's been a lot of talk about the excellent exposure TNA has received from this deal. If you are a WWE fan who picked up TNA since the relationship, would you still watch TNA if the agreement came to an end? Have you seen anything that makes this company stand out and be special? Are you now a TNA fan for life? You know, I read the comments on a recent TNA YouTube video which said, "Get these Eric Young, Kazarian and John Macklin guys off the show. I don't know who they are and they suck." That was the most liked comment, by the way. Does that not tell you all you need to know? Despite this deal apparently being amazing, what can we honestly say has improved? The wrestling hasn't, the storylines haven't, the pay-per-views haven't, the production values have maybe slightly, but nothing to shout about. I think this is the worst deal of all time. It's great for the WWE, they get another developmental show and they get first access to potential wrestlers from TNA. But what's TNA getting? Nobody's talking about them, nobody's loyal to them, there's nothing to be optimistic about. We should probably talk a bit about Joe Hendry, although I know I've done that a lot lately, but people complain that I let WWE off too easily. This deal has been pretty good for Hendry's career, but he's had some big moments. But in all of them, he's essentially been comedy fodder. This is the guy representing TNA on the biggest wrestling stage of them all. He was the champion, but he loses most of his WWE matches that matter. He lost in 3 minutes of Mania, so what does that make TNA? I can't imagine many people saw that match and thought, wow, this Joe Hendry guy is incredible, I better watch TNA now. He's meant to be the best of the best from TNA. Shouldn't he have delivered some sort of spectacular match or moment which made people think, let's give TNA a go? Why wasn't the title on the line? Why wasn't he selling his shoulder injury in line with the TNA storyline at the time? Yeah, that was an incredible TNA storyline, a guy had an injury. Come on WWE, can we at least do something to make fans think, oh, TNA looks cool? Instead it was like, here's this entertaining guy, Joe Hendry. We don't actually own him, but we will soon. Mike Santana also got to wrestle Trick Williams for the TNA title in NXT. He lost. Hilariously, NXT fans have been complaining that they're tired of unknown TNA guys taking up time on their show. Pot, kettle, black. It's literally just NXT fans watching clips of TNA on YouTube, let's be honest. This is a tough video for me to make, and I must have rewritten this script 10 times. Let's be real first of all. It is impossible to critique the WWE and still be successful. Name me one major YouTube channel which dislikes the WWE. You can't. And when I say dislikes, I mean they regularly hate on them each week, with dedicated videos. You can't name me one. Unfortunately, we're all eating off their table. They own us. Anyone who does anything related to wrestling. Look all the interviews going around on YouTube. Praise, praise, praise. You're allowed to make fun of AEW though, and the funny thing is, the two shows aren't that different. Same wrestling style, similar wrestlers, similar storylines, similar production values. Honestly, the only good thing I've seen from this relationship is that live attendances are up in TNA, which has mainly meant that there's fans chanting NXT on TNA shows. We need to normalise criticising things in wrestling which aren't so good. That's how we improve them. In TNA, we've had to contend with fucking Hornswoggle, Santino's daughter, random flippy cruiserweight tag teams that I'll never watch again, Robbie E as a GM, constant musical segments, dead knockout division, constant adverts, bad storylines with zero effort. Open your damn eyes, this company already is the WWE. This is exactly the kind of stuff I wanted to get away from when I dropped the WWE back in the day. Not everyone wants to see this style of wrestling. I want an alternative. I did used to love the WWE, and I am grateful for everything they've done in the past, but I just don't feel like I'm their target audience right now. Being from Great Britain, I don't believe in surrender. It's not in my blood. Yet I'm supposed to somehow support a company which has surrendered, rolled over onto its belly, arched its back, spread its legs, and got fucked by the WWE. We're at a point where there's no coming back, and TNA is only technically a separate company, but it's WWE as far as I can see. I will always support a fighting underdog, but the battle is lost here. This dog needs to be put down. At this age of my life, I want to be around success and good business people. If you are a young dog coming up, you shouldn't watch this TNA show. It demonstrates exactly how to act like a little bitch. Not only in this wrestling business, but also in life. TNA are the biggest ass-kissing, back-scratching, no backbone coward pussies and wimps, and they belong to WWE because they're punks and they got punked out. You don't want that rubbing off on you at such an important stage in your life. If you watch this show, your dick will shrivel up and fall off. It's not good for my mental health supporting losers. Why bother cheering for something which literally can't succeed? They are now built to serve their masters. Oh please WWE, let us borrow JD Madonna for one night. We really need to get eyes on our product. We promise he can beat Casey Navarro in 2 minutes. We'll do anything you ask from us. You can even piss all over our title belt if you want. Just make sure you give it a wipe afterwards. Ugh. I don't hate the WWE, I just think if they control the whole of wrestling, that would be incredibly bad. How long before an NWA or an MLW gets taken over? They seem to be extremely aggressive at the moment and everyone is essentially being bullied by them. It's time we stop praising this deal. It's been 6 months and nothing has improved, it's only gotten worse. Let the NXT wrestlers wrestle on their show and vice versa with TNA. Everybody would then be a lot happier because we can all then hopefully see our favourite wrestling companies succeed.